Welcome to the 180 Life Coach Podcast, home of the Becoming Movement, a place for awareness, truth, healing, rebuilding, and becoming. A journey of understanding who you were, who you are, and if you're ready, becoming who you were always meant to be. Because it isn't over. You're still becoming. And now, here's your host, Ingra Michelle Williams.
What have you been carrying that no longer serves you? And what part of your past that still seems to be influencing your present? And have you ever wondered why sometimes you still seem to stay stuck in situations, sometimes for years? And what if you could lay down one burden today and never pick it up again? What would it be? Well, I'd like to thank you for joining me today. My name is Ingra Michelle Williams, and I am your 180 Life Coach. And today we're talking about healing and forgiveness, the secret sauce. So, I want to ask you another question. What do you think sauces do for food? See, they don't become the meal, but they do help to bring everything together. They enhance what's already there, and they can completely transform the flavor of a dish without changing the main ingredient. See, I believe that healing has a secret sauce to it. Over the last few weeks, we've talked about awareness and we've talked about truth. But awareness by itself doesn't change a life, nor does truth by itself change a life. But we can become aware and we can recognize truth. And we can even know exactly what we need to do. But unless we intentionally decide that we want to keep moving forward, we're going to stay exactly where we are. And I want to say today that healing is the intentional process of releasing what no longer serves us. And today, I also want to talk about what I believe that secret sauce is that makes healing possible. And that is forgiveness. And so I don't want to rush this. We're going to start digging into this. And I know we're going to probably pick it up for at least another episode. Told you I don't come here with a bunch of words already in my heart. I try to speak them as God gives them to me. Because I told you I stayed stuck for 55 years. And that's a crazy thing to do. And I want to know, where have you been stuck in your life? Where do you feel you haven't been able to move forward? Because I stayed stuck. And the sad part about it, I didn't even realize how stuck I was. And what I will tell you, I don't feel like we intentionally choose to stay stuck, right? I didn't choose to say, I just want to be here at this point and I want to get to my breaking point and feel like my life is falling apart before I could pick it up. No, it wasn't my plan. It wasn't my plan. But I believe that somewhere unintentionally, we stay stuck because we suppress. Yep. We decide, I don't want to deal with this. I don't want to deal with the feeling. I don't want to deal with the past. I don't want to deal with the hurt. I don't want to deal with it. So we distract ourselves. We get busy. We pick up habits. We pick up addictions. And sometimes we pick up people. We avoid. We're good at avoiding. Sometimes somebody tries to talk to you about something that you don't want to talk about. I don't want to talk about it. Right? We keep moving because we feel like I don't have time to stop. I don't have time to deal with this. I need to get on with my life. But the real reason is we're stuck. We think we're moving forward. We tell ourselves, I'm over it. That was in the past. I don't deal with that anymore. But what I want to tell you, because we suppress and we ignore, it doesn't make it disappear. It just simply waits. Now, I explained to you that I was the queen of I'm just going to walk through my life and try to figure out why I'm feeling like I'm feeling. And I couldn't understand why I was feeling. But anything that I did not want to deal with, anything that was too painful, I told you I pushed it down. And I had this suitcase in my brain that I had pushed things down for so many years until one day it just popped open. And I was trying to stick it back in there with all the new stuff that was popping in. And I could not. I had no capacity because my suitcase for suppression was full. It was full. And when I finally got to my breaking point, which birthed the becoming movement, I'm so grateful because something came out of me. The answers that I had been looking for my whole life for those 55 years. And as I started to pull myself together, I had to tell myself, I'm safe. Because I'm going to tell you, I would love to say that it was at my own discovery, because I didn't have the answers for 55 years. I believe in a moment of my brokenness and of my complete submission. God gave me the answers that I had been searching for my whole life. And it was so clear. And I knew that as I started to remember things, I could not allow myself to come at it with anger. Now, I'm not telling you how you will process your own healing because healing is going to be different for everyone. So, if we think about healing, healing cannot exist where there was not a wound, right? What are we healing from? What are we healing from, Ingra? When we talk about these things, I don't want you to look at yourself as a victim. I don't want you to look at yourself as a broken person because we are not broken. And I will keep saying that because I refuse to allow anybody to look at their lives with shame. No, we are becoming who we were before all of the BS. Okay. And so when I say we cannot heal if there wasn't a wound. And so when I think about, and I had to ask Alexa, I said, Alexa, give me the verb for, because I felt that it was important to be able to come to you so you can start to paint a picture because I see things in pictures. And so if you fall off your bike and you injure yourself, you get a cut. That is an injury or it is a hurt that was inflicted to your body, right? I want you to think about a wound as an injury or a hurt to your soul, your inner man, yourself, however you like to identify. So I had some wounds that happened to Ingra. They happened also to little Ingra because I like to refer to my childhood past as little Ingra because little Ingra handled things differently from Ingra. So we had to have something that hurt us in the past that we continue to carry. And for me, a lot of things I did not realize that I had suppressed. And so I can only think of, yeah, I got mommy issues, right? But I was not focusing on the 50,000 other wounds that happened, some concurrently, some after, some later in life. I was only focused on the one that I sorta, kinda allowed myself to remember. And even with that, I talked to you and I said a friend made a comment one day about my mom, and I was like, "How dare you? How dare you?" And they were like, "You don't remember?" And they started going off and telling me all these things that I had totally, totally forgotten. And I was like, "Oh my god, they're right." And it kinda shocked me because I was like, those memories were buried so far down because I didn't wanna remember them. And so we consciously carry these hurts with us, and they affect how we show up every day in our life. And now that we've identified them, we can facilitate the process of healing. And healing, when I looked it up, it said the process of making something or someone healthy again, the process of becoming well. Hmm, I love that. The process of becoming. Because when I will have an aha while I'm talking to you guys. Like me just looking at my notes, I'm like, wow, because we are in the process of becoming beautiful. I just wrote that before I started talking to you guys because I have put off recording this because I did not feel I could give you what you needed until I was ready to sit down with some clarity. I could not rush this. And so, in order for us to facilitate healing, it means that we are releasing hurts from our past so that we can become healthy again. The process of becoming well. Say that with me. The process of becoming well. Now let's put an I in front of that. I am, because I am, whatever we declare in front of the words I am, we put it in the atmosphere. So let's say it together. I am in the process of becoming well. One more time. I am in the process of becoming well. If you did that with me, thank you, because your life has changed already. See, healing is not a one time event, it's not this miraculous thing that pops up because we first have to understand we've been carrying some stuff. And when you have things that you don't even recognize, when you have a past that you don't even recognize, it can come out in bursts of emotional explosions. So whenever you have an outburst at something, that is something that you can start to really examine. Because when I sent out a message and I said, I don't know if anybody pay attention to my little post, but if you go out on my Instagram page, my Facebook, my TikTok, I put out a version of myself wearing 55 coats, carrying them. I said I had one coat for every year of my life. Whatever happened, whatever hurts, disappointments, pains that I went through that year, it was like piling on a coat. And unless we take that coat off, unless we release it, we're carrying it with us into our future. We're continuing to suppress because every new layer suppresses the old layer. So all these things that we're carrying, they really don't belong to us anymore. We don't have to worry about the anger, the shame, the regret, the bitterness, old labels, old identities, the people's opinions, right? Because we've all dealt with that. I was talking to someone today and they said, I feel like I'm so misunderstood. I feel like if I could just get people to understand me because I feel so misunderstood. And I've heard them say that so many times. I feel the weight of those words. And so when we're sitting here going, I need people to understand me, they don't understand me. You are carrying the weight of other people's opinions. Because the truth is, who cares? The truth is, we don't have to live under the expectation of what somebody thinks I should be. Because if we felt like I'm being so misunderstood, that means we're focused more on what people think than living our own lives intentionally. Because at the end of the day, if you want to go dance butt naked in the rain, it's none of my business. I might look at you and say, now that girl's a fool. But if it made you feel good in the moment, it's not my opinion that matters. So the question I want to ask is, what have you been carrying no longer fits in your life? See, what I will tell you, what I will tell you is that everything we do, everything is talking about being intentional. And what you have to understand is if we want to heal, right? Because we can identify a problem, we can know where it came from. But you have to intentionally say, it's time to let this stuff go. It's time for me to walk forward in my life because I'm tired of carrying this problem. I'm tired of carrying the situation. I've had more people in my life that have stabbed me in the back that I'm probably walking around with knives sticking out my back. And I'm going to be honest with you, I don't think I deserved one of them. I just came across a lot of hurt people because hurt people hurt people. And because I had all those knives in my back, I started not to trust people. I shut myself off from people. I limited the contact. I would say, that girl's my friend, but I never even had too much of a conversation with that person. And I even shared with you about feeling like I had all these friends and then thinking if somebody came to them and said, "Hey, we want to talk to you about your friend Ingra," they would probably go, I know Ingra, but I don't know if I would call her a friend." And that realization was painful because I realized that I stayed back because I did not want to get hurt again. I did not want to deal with another knife in my back. Now, when you start to go through this process, I need you to be prepared because you have to allow yourself to remember. And so memories can be painful because people don't want to deal with them. And one of the things that God put in my spirit as I was working on this last week was when we don't allow ourselves to feel, then we don't allow ourselves the opportunity to heal. And remember, I said you have to say, I'm safe now. I'm ready to remember my past because otherwise your body will say, we ain't gonna tell her the truth. She ain't ready for the truth. Right. Because sometimes we're asking for it, but we're not ready to deal with it. And so you have to allow yourselves and say, you know what, whatever comes up, I'm safe and I'm ready to remember. And I tell you, stuff started coming to me that I had totally forgotten about. And what I need you to know is that when we don't allow ourselves to feel, we don't allow we don't allow ourselves the opportunity to heal. What are you talking about, Ingra? Let me give you a picture. If you have a fishbowl, or if you've ever had a fishbowl, then this will make sense to you. I told my daughter this story. She laughs at me all the time. She's like, I get it, Mom. I get it. Because she has a fishbowl now. Whenever you go into the store, like you can go into my bowl right now and you can look at my little fishes swimming around and they'll look like they're in this cute water and everything's like beautiful. And then you can come in there one day and your fish all dead. And you're thinking like, how did my fish die? What did my fish die? They look perfectly fine. And then you take your water sample to the little pet store and they test it and they're like, oh, your nitrates are off the chart. What are the nitrates? It's when food, debris, waste products break down in the fish tank. It makes your fish tank toxic, right? Well, if you don't know how and you don't know that you're supposed to clean out that fish tank, then you are looking at it and you're like, it's perfectly fine. I see the little fishes in there. They look perfectly fine to me. But any person who's ever maintained a fish tank or an aquarium knows that you can look at that water and it looks perfectly fine. You can even siphon out some water and it'll be perfectly fine. But in order to clean a fish tank, it has to get dirty before it gets better. So you gotta put that siphon in there and stir up the rocks, because when you stir up the rocks, all the shit is in the rocks. And if I offended you by that word, I apologize. But I want you to get the impact of what I'm saying. All of the shit is in the rocks. All the poop, all the unleft food, and I say SHIT because it's dirty. A dirty word for dirty debris that's holding your life down. And you're like the little fish in the fish tank swimming around looking like you're fine. And you're suffering silently, hoping that your owner comes and changes that water because you're feeling it. You're feeling the stress, but the owner is walking past you because they're looking in and everything looks fine. When I was going through my whole breakdown, I'm sure to the world I looked fine, but I was struggling inside. And I probably just looked like a negative person because I was in there going, can you change the water? I'm dying. And nobody heard me. They heard my complaints, my moaning and my groaning. And so if we're going to heal, we're going to have to shake up some water. We're going to have to get it all to float now so that the filter can pick it up. And so that's what we're doing in healing. We're shaking the water. And it doesn't sometimes look pretty. Like whenever I clean my fishbowl, I'm like, look at all that stuff floating around because it's a process. It's a process, guys. If you don't get anything else, healing is a process. So when you get to this step, don't think that you're going to just, go, yeah, I'm healed. I'm healed. No, it doesn't work like that. And so when you're going through this process, a lot of stuff can come up, and sometimes you might need to go find a therapist to work with. You might need a friend. My daughter was my friend through a lot of this that I could just talk to, and she would just listen, and I appreciate her so much for that. Because healing can be crying. Crying just because you're realizing how much crap you've been carrying and how it's affected you. It could be just releasing the things that you never should have had to handle. Your healing can be the process of letting some people go out of your life. It could be letting go of some patterns in your life that you know is no longer serving you. Your healing can look like choosing peace over trying to just even prove a point. Because a lot of people will say, you know what, watch me show because she said this about me, because she did this to me. Trust me, I was like that. It's like that. I had people tell me I was never gonna be anything. You ain't gonna never gonna do nothing. You ain't gonna never have anything. And I remember thinking like, okay, watch me. Then somewhere along the way, I let that go. But I remember running into some of those people who were like, "You're never gonna do or have," and I remember walking with my head up just a little bit higher, saying, now what you got to say?" And I guess that's just my flawed human nature, right? But when people have wronged us or said things, it's very easy to say, "Watch me." But I say, choose peace. You don't have to prove yourself. Because remember, that was something that we were carrying that we are now releasing, and that is the opinions of other people. Healing can be creating boundaries in your life, standing up for yourself, taking time to reclaim your own life. And what I will tell you that sometimes when you're going through the process of healing, it can be painful. It can really weigh on you. But when we allow ourselves to heal, we allow ourselves to intentionally release what is no longer serving us. I like to call healing the cocoon phase. And if you have your becoming manual, I call it the quiet before the transformation. Because healing requires us to be vulnerable. When a caterpillar starts to ascend into shedding the old so it can emerge with the new, it's vulnerable. And when you're in that process, I want you to always think intentionally. Why am I going through this process of healing? What did it make me feel like when I was facing that situation? It's time, guys. It's time to heal. Because as I started going through this process, it didn't take away the pain and it didn't take away my past. And I cried more days than I probably wanted to. And my poor husband was probably looking at me like, oh my God, here she goes again. And I never knew that when we suppress and keep things in, because we've always been taught, you know what? Suck it up. How many people suck it up? You don't cry, right? And so we learn to suppress. And as I started going through healing, I found that you are supposed to release because when we release, now I can let it go. Now my fish tank can become clear instead of me allowing that poor little fish to be poisoned and die. I'm giving him an environment so that he can live and thrive. Let it go. Because that's what healing is. It's about releasing the things that don't belong. Because healing is always an intentional action. Nobody accidentally heals and nobody accidentally becomes. Every step requires a conscious decision every day, again and again and again. You may have some good days, you may have some bad days. You may find yourself waking up one day and not wanting to get out of the bed at all. Guess what? It's okay. What do you want to do that day? And do that. Because when I was poisoning myself in that garage, smoking and drinking, I was doing that intentionally. And then it became my garage of working out. And one day I looked up and the cigarette smell had completely dissipated because it was like it was all through the garage. It was like dog dander and stale cigarettes. And when I made the decision to let those habits go, the remnants of the smoke still was in the air. Listen to me. It was still in the air. It was still ashes. And I intentionally got up and I started moving and organizing things. And what used to be a room that was trying to kill me became a room that started to build me and my body back, started to build my mind. And every day I went into that garage. It was a conscious, intentional decision. And my body was healing. My eyes were clearing. My stomach was going down. I was feeling better. Didn't happen one day. It was a conscious decision every single day. And even as I'm recording this, I'm in the process of redoing my whole garage. And I told my husband it's becoming too. It's a manifestation of my becoming because it became such a place of my peace. And even when it was dust and spider webs, and I didn't even know, guys, I had a rat that was living in a box. This is a true story. He was out there getting the becoming movement. He was listening to me as I was talking to myself, healing, learning this philosophy that was in my head that was given to me. That little rat was in that box. I didn't even know he was there. I spent hours in that garage. I never heard him. He stayed quiet. I think he was becoming too. And one day I told my husband, I said, you know what? I had started to grow. I was advancing. I was losing weight. And I was like, I've outgrown this place and this space. And I felt like God was still holding me in it. I didn't even understand. And I'm speaking his words right to you now because I went to join a gym because I was like, you know what? I've only come as far as I can come in this garage like it is. Hear me. It wasn't smelling like the cigarettes anymore. But it had all this stuff that was just in a garage, if you can imagine an old dusty garage. And now it started in the wintertime, but now we were in the summertime. It's not conducive to working out. It was hot, it was getting muggy. Spiders were coming in. It was just not a fun place. And so I was going to go to the gym and start a membership. And it's a great thing that I didn't because they were like, "Oh, you owe us money. We can't let you come back here until you pay us the money." And I was like, "I don't owe you guys any money. I paid the money." And so I'm trying to get that whole thing straightened out. And every day I was like, "God, why do you have me forced to be in this darn garage?" It was like I could not get out the garage. But I just kept going anyway. And then one day I was like, "You know what? I am going to redo this whole garage." It was like I just got this wow hair. I looked around and I thought of what it could become. Do you hear me? I started looking around and I thought of what it could become. And I started working intentionally to draw out a map of how I can make this garage work for everything I needed it to be. Dog still needed to be there. The lawn equipment needed to stay there. My husband's motorcycle. I said, I can make it something beautiful. And every day I've been working piece by piece, and it's probably been the hardest project I've ever worked on. But guess what? Had I not made that decision, I would not have, hear me, become aware of the rat that was in the garage, that we moved because the rat didn't come from our neighborhood. We have a brand new house. We moved some old boxes from an old abandoned house that my husband had some things stored at. It was his old job website. They were going to tear it down, and he had some of our boxes there. And it was a million cats around that house when we went to go get those boxes. And the cats were probably there because they had food, right? Nobody was working in the office, and a lot of the boxes were damaged. We threw them out, but we moved some into our home, not realizing, listen to me, we were carrying something. And the rat was in there just living. And I was unconscious. But once I got honest with the mess and started looking at the truth, pillar two, of my garage and realizing, you know what? This looks like a dumping ground because we have been dumping everything in that garage and I was working out around it. There was no organization. It was all these shelves with things just strewn on top of it. Unintentional. Nothing in the garage was intentional. A hot mess. And the bad part was we just continued to use it the way it was. And then one day, I looked at it for the first time with new eyes and said, this can become a beautiful space that I want to be in all the time. Became more than a garage remodel. It became a part of the rebuilding of my life because I'm still in process. And what I will tell you, we're all in process, but we have to release and let go. And the only way we can start to facilitate true healing, are you ready for it? Is when we forgive. Yep, forgiveness is the secret sauce. It enhances, it transforms. Forgiveness is such a beautiful thing. And a lot of times we feel that we've forgiven, and really what we've just done is suppressed. And we're going to dig into it because next week when we come together, I'm going to talk to you about one of the biggest challenges. And it wasn't so much a challenge because I felt like I was primed for it, but it was probably one of the most painful experiences that I've ever had to endure. And I want to share it with you, and I don't want to rush it. Forgiveness is so powerful because you cannot heal what you're not willing to forgive. And forgiveness is not pretending, it's not forgetting, it's not excusing, it's not even reconciling, but it is intentionally releasing what no longer serves you so you can continue to become. I've given you a lot to think about today. And I hope that rat story, it didn't stir up anybody too much because I'm going to tell you, when I found that rat in the garage, I literally was in the process of going through every single box and I was dumping out again what did no longer serve me, what I did not want to carry into my new space. And when I went to open the box, all I saw was a gray body and a tail. And I closed that box as fast as I could. And I told my husband, take this box right back to where you got it from. I put it back in his work car, rat in it and everything. And so little, what do we want to call him? Ben. We'll call him Ben. Y'all know Ben. Ben, the two of us need look no more. Okay, I told you I was silly. I told you I was silly. We've talked about a heavy subject, so we can end this with a little joke. But yeah, the rat was in the box, and so he's gone now. And I would have never known he was there had I not intentionally decided to release things that were no longer serving me so I could heal my garage and intentionally make it become a place that represented my life of who I am, not trying to become somebody different because I've always loved working out and exercise. I've never had my own space and I'm so excited. But every day I look up, it makes me smile because I see what it's becoming. And so As you go through your week, I want to just give you some reflection questions. What are you still holding on to that you know it's time to let go of? And what emotions have you been living that have been quietly making decisions for you? And what would become possible in your lives if you intentionally started to release some things that don't belong there? Because we become aware intentionally. We choose truth intentionally. We heal intentionally. We build intentionally. And then we become intentionally. Because every step of this process is going to require one thing. And that is a conscious decision to continue to move forward. And see, that's why I believe forgiveness is the secret sauce. Because it's not that it changes what happened yesterday, but because it changes what yesterday is allowed to do tomorrow. Hear me. Not because it changes yesterday, but because it changes what yesterday is allowed to do tomorrow. Hurt, you can't control my life. Pain, you don't have any place here. Sorrow, I'm sorry I'm breaking up with you. Pain, you're in my past. Because guess what? I'm becoming. Until then, be blessed and continue to become.
Thank you for joining us on the 180 Life Coach podcast. Remember, awareness is where it begins. What you do with that awareness is your choice. And becoming is your decision. Because it isn't over. It's just the beginning.